This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
At the close of the Second World War, a young woman entrusted her daughter to a sailor returning home from service overseas. Now, 49 years later, the smoker car baby has grown up and needs your help to find the mother who reluctantly gave her away. East Chicago, Indiana, 1981. It was politics as usual at a fundraiser for a leading candidate for mayor. Then a local mover and shaker named Jay Given was gunned down in the lobby of the Elks Club, and the prime suspect turned out to be a deputy police chief. In 1992, Larry COSTINE was gunned down at his ranch in Florida. That same night, his girlfriend, Melissa Jo Sermons, mysteriously vanished. Joe's family fears that she too may have met with foul play, but police believe she may have been involved in Larry's death. Join me. For every mystery, there is someone who knows the truth. Perhaps it's you. East Chicago, Indiana is a classic industrial blue-collar community. Like its famous namesake in Illinois, everyday life in East Chicago was for years controlled by the local political machine. For 2 decades, one of the city's power brokers was an attorney named Jay Given. Given was a master fundraiser, clever behind-the-scenes operator who traded on favors to create strong political alliances.
My father was very powerful. He understood how to win elections. He was intimately familiar with the politicians, the people in power, knew all the skeletons in their closet, and that makes you very powerful in a town like this.
But by the 1970s, the political machines in the Midwest were beginning to come apart. In 1970, Given had helped elect Bob Pastrick, the city controller, as mayor of East Chicago. But within 2 years, they were on the outs and no longer allies.
On a number of issues, my father and Mr. Pastrick split. Obviously, my father's attentions were starting to turn towards electing somebody else other than Bob Pastrick as mayor.
On May 15, 1981, the local Elks Club was the scene of a Las Vegas-style fundraiser for County Commissioner N. Addison Spann. Spann, the city's foremost black politician, was considering a run for mayor.
I'm gonna go right there.
Okay.
Well,
Jay Given.
How are you this evening? Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Jay Given's appearance at the fundraiser was regarded by many as an attempt to solidify East Chicago's white and black power blocks against the growing political strength of Hispanic Americans who were backing Bob Pastrick for re-election.
John, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Given worked the room for 2 hours. Shortly after 11 p.m., he said his goodbyes and headed out of the club. He never made it through the front door. Jay Given was shot once in the back of the head at point-blank range. He died in the entryway of the Elks Club within earshot of 400 people. Incredibly, no one ever admitted to witnessing the shooting, and 12 years later, police have yet to charge a suspect. But on the night of the murder, detectives thought the case might be wrapped up quickly. especially after they found a shell casing in the foyer of the club and a spent .45 caliber bullet in the street.
I was astonished at the remarkable condition that this evidence was in. Projectile come through the frontal part of his forehead, went through the glass doors, hit the building across the street, brick building, and bounced back into the street. It was in perfect condition, with the exception of the nose of the projectile.
Inspector DiCera marked the evidence and locked it in his desk drawer rather than check it into the vault.
And which is not uncommon. I've done it with other evidence. My partner has done it with other evidence. I just wanted the other teams to look at what we had as far as evidence. And I said, this is unbelievable.
4 days later, Inspector DiCera was shocked when he opened his drawer and discovered that someone had tampered with the evidence in an apparent attempt to prevent investigators from matching the bullet to a gun.
On the shell casing, a hole was punched through the primer. The projectile, someone had taken a sharp instrument and tried to cut the lens and grooves where you couldn't identify it.
The only people with access to the evidence drawer worked in the police department. The tampering had all the earmarks of an inside job. DiCera sent the altered bullet and shell casing to the FBI for analysis. Despite the damage, they identified the murder weapon as a rare handgun called a Detonics. The casing was eventually linked to one of only 58 Detonics with a specially modified ejecting mechanism. Incredibly, one of those guns was traced back to the East Chicago Police Department. The weapon was once owned by Deputy Chief John Cardona, who was a prime suspect in the case. Cardona had been a member of a Latino political club that was at odds with Jay Given, and several eyewitnesses placed him at the Elks Club on the night of the shooting.
Mr. Cardona was very active in the Spanish organization. They were not welcome at this event. I think he gave 2 or 3 different reasons why he was there based on different conversations. He at some point in time acknowledged that he was there to watch Jay Given.
You're killing me.
According to investigators, a witness claims that Cardona seemed to be following Given at one point during the evening.
Given had made it clear that if his people came in power in the city, there were going to be some changes, and Cardona was one of those changes. As a matter of fact, the comment that was used that if he got in, Cardona would be walking the beat.
None of the witnesses saw Cardona when Given made his way towards the exit. However, one partygoer says that shortly before the shooting, he saw Given engage in a discussion with a man in the lobby. Investigators believe the man could have been John Cardona.
He described the man that was talking with Mr. Given as approximately 6'1", black, wavy hair, and a bluish gray suit. That could have been consistent with what Mr. Cardona was wearing at the time and his size. He went into the washroom, and as he was in the washroom, he heard a gunshot. When he came out of the washroom immediately, he saw Mr. Given lying face down on the floor, and the other person was gone.
Cardona said that he was in the bar when Given was gunned down. However, according to investigators, several people said they did not remember seeing him there at the time.
Witnesses who were seated at the bar, who know him, could not place him there. The only person that puts John in the bar at the time of the shooting is John himself.
Did you tell the investigators the truth about this case?
Yes.
Over the next few weeks, everyone in the police department was asked to take a polygraph exam, including Deputy Chief Cardona. Cardona failed the test, and later he refused to take a second exam.
Did you shoot Jay Given?
Investigators believed that 3 key pieces of evidence pointed to John Cardona. He apparently fit the description of the man seen talking with Given. He owned a Detonics handgun, even though he said it had been stolen 6 months earlier. And Cardona did have access to the drawer where the evidence had been kept. But when viewed in a different light, what appears to be overwhelming circumstantial evidence actually makes John Cardona an unlikely suspect. Why would a man as prominent as a deputy police chief make a very visible appearance at a fundraiser attended by 400 people? Why would he then shadow the movements of a known political rival for at least part of the evening, as alleged by one witness? And why would he murder that rival within earshot of every guest at the party? Perhaps it was these very questions that kept prosecutors from pressing charges. In fact, the case was never even brought before the grand jury.
I think the concern that the local prosecutor had was that he could not afford to lose this case. He wanted basically a case that was a tight case, and he didn't think his case was tight enough.
I would like to see an indictment. I'd like to see a trial. And if John Cardona didn't do it, then fine. Let's put it to a jury. And if he didn't do it, in the eyes of the jury, beyond a reasonable doubt, there you have it. Let's go after the next, whoever did do it. It's very frustrating to not have some closure on this.
Who murdered Jay Given? At this point, police believe there are witnesses who may be able to help answer that question. Just prior to the shooting, 5 people were descending the stairway of the Elks Club. 3 of them, all men, were approaching the foot of the steps at the precise moment that Jay Given was gunned down. The 3 men have never been identified. The police hope that one of them saw the killer and will now come forward with information. When we return, a Florida rancher is murdered and his girlfriend mysteriously vanishes. Larry Costine was a Southern cowboy. Just before the turn of the century, his great-great-grandfather had homesteaded a stretch of harsh land in central Florida near the city of Lakeland. Larry took his ranching heritage seriously. He had spent his entire 31 years working with horses and cattle.
Larry was riding a horse from the time he was 2 years old. He loved to work. He loved to rodeo. He was stout, husky, strong as a mule. He wasn't the type of person to get into trouble. He stayed away from trouble. Of course, if it came along, he knew how to take care of himself.
Larry's uncle Erlo was the barn manager for the Cattleman's Livestock Auction Market.
Hi, Erlo. Hi, Larry. Joe, how you doing? How are you? How are you? All right.
Hey, how many do you have? One of Erlo's employees was Melissa Jo Sermons, whom everyone called Joe.
Joe, I'm gonna run these up the office.
Okay.
Be back later.
Okay, I'll see you later. Hey, you ain't said nothing to him about us, have you?
Erlo?
Yeah.
No, I ain't said anything. Tell him something.
No, I didn't say anything.
Unbeknownst even to Erlo, Joe and Larry were romantically involved. They kept their relationship a secret because Larry had just split up with his wife and Joe with her boyfriend.
You do? Okay, well, that's good.
The boyfriend often worked at the auction market too. By all accounts, he wasn't taking the breakup well.
Different occasions, I've caught him. He would be following her, watching her. He was just very upset at the fact that she had left his house and he was having to live by himself again.
He followed her continuously. Joe and my other daughter went to the store. He would follow them. Midnight, you'd see. We even caught him sneaking down under the kitchen window listening to their conversation one night. We asked him what he was doing. He said, oh, I thought I heard something out here and I was just looking. But he was eavesdropping.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sasso's Arena in La Coochie, Florida.
On Saturday, May 2nd, 1992, Larry and Joe were in Dade City, Florida for the weekly rodeo.
Snorting steer out of chute number 1 right now.
The events got underway around 10 p.m. Larry and Joe never missed the rodeo. Larry was one of the local stars, and his favorite event was team milking. That night, Joe stuck by Larry's side, right up to the minute he and his partner were called into the box.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at a brand new winning time tonight with the two winners taking home the $175.
Larry and his partner split a $350 purse. The rodeo finished late that night. Around 2 a.m., Larry and Joe went out to breakfast with a friend. They dropped him off at 4 a.m. It is believed Joe and Larry arrived back at his trailer around 4:15 Sunday morning. No one knows exactly what happened after that. When Joe didn't come home that night, her mother called EARLOW COSTINE. For the first time, he learned of Joe and Larry's relationship. EARLOW called Larry's trailer, but Larry didn't answer. The next morning, when Joe didn't show up for work, EARLOW drove to Larry's trailer. He found Larry's truck in the driveway and heard a radio on inside the trailer. EARLOW's frantic knocks at the door went unanswered.
As soon as I got to the trailer and seen the situation, I immediately called back to my wife and told her to call the sheriff's department and get them out there. And a feeling came to me that I knew in my mind that something bad was wrong.
I really appreciate this. I'm EARLOW COSTINE.
Bob Clayton, how you doing?
Pleasure. I'm worried to death about my nephew, Larry.
Have you tried to go inside the house yet?
No, I haven't. I'm afraid to be honest about it.
Does anybody have a key to it?
I got the key.
Sheriff's office, is anybody home? Mr. Constine, is anybody home?
Exactly what I got.
When the deputy put the key in and opened the door, the smell was unreal, and I knew then that Larry was dead. But I felt like that both of them would be there when we opened the door, being both of them was missing at the time.
As soon as they told EARLOW there was only one body, he called us and told us at that time that my daughter was missing. They did not know where she was at.
Larry Costine had been found nude on his bedroom floor, shot through the head 4 times with a handgun. His bed had not been slept in. There was no sign of a struggle or robbery, and one of Larry's guns was missing.
When was the last time you seen Larry?
The Polk County Sheriff's Department launched an all-out investigation. At first, suspicion focused on Joe's ex-boyfriend.
Take some photographs for me.
We interviewed him. He was able to give us an alibi for his particular time and location when the actual murder occurred. I don't feel that the ex-boyfriend at this time has any involvement. I have no evidence to indicate that.
Joe, let's move down to that end.
Soon, Joe herself became a suspect. But EARLOW Costine is convinced that Joe Sermons did not murder his nephew.
Okay, sure.
I feel like that somebody watched Larry, knew Larry was at the roping, knew Joe was with Larry, followed Larry home, or knew when he was coming home and was waiting for him.
No, you're gonna wash down. Let's get over here. You don't need no
Personally, I feel like it was somebody real jealous of his actions that particular night, being with Joe, spending the night with Joe.
Didn't I tell you to stay away from him?
I think Joe was probably taken at gunpoint and at a later time murdered. I think Joe's dead.
If we want to look at Joe's ex-boyfriend as a suspect in this case, I think that he would have probably committed the offense in a different situation. I don't think that it would have happened in the residence. I don't think he would have allowed Joe and Larry to spend time in a residence alone. And also the fact that, of course, there's no struggle.
The authorities believe Joe Sermons may be the only person who could have gotten close enough to Larry Costine to kill him without a struggle. Is it possible that something happened in the trailer that night? Something that provoked Joe to violence?
I think Larry could have made her mad. He can make anybody mad in a split second. He'll push and push and push until he does make you mad. They might have gotten in an argument. and it led into one thing or another. I mean, she could have been joking, but it just led into something violent.
Put down, Joe! Put it down! Hey, okay, go ahead and shoot me! Go ahead!
In my heart, I strongly believe that she is alive and that she is hiding.
Based on everything that I've learned at this time, I feel that Joe is in some way involved in the murder, either actually committing the murder or possibly a witness to it. But she has some type of involvement and or knowledge about it.
I think her ex-boyfriend's kidnapped her. I would like to think she's still alive, but I really don't believe that they could hold her this long. I believe she's dead. I've come to terms with God. I just want him to help me settle this case, to find out who did it and let them pay the penalty that they should pay.
Ever since the night Larry Costine was murdered, there have been sightings of Melissa Jo Sermons at truck stops in Florida, Texas, and Kansas. The authorities believe the sightings are reliable. EARLOW Costine does not.
I feel like if by now that she'd made a move to come back or see her mother and her sisters, I can't believe that anybody's ever really seen her. They've seen people that they thought maybe was her.
The authorities continue to investigate this case on the assumption that Jo Sermons is still alive. Jo holds a license to operate a tractor-trailer, and 2 witnesses have claimed they saw her behind the wheel of a big rig hauling livestock. Nearly 50 years ago, a young mother, barely able to support herself, reluctantly gave up her baby. Perhaps you can help reunite them. Next. August 14th, 1945, the end of the Second World War. All across the country, people spontaneously took to the streets in joyous celebration. There would be no more fighting. The troops were coming home. Life would return to normal. In November of that year, Seaman First Class Donald Caffrey boarded a train in Seattle heading home to his wife in Omaha, Nebraska, after almost 2 years at sea. In the smoker car, Donald ran into a young woman named Dorothy Johnson.
Beautiful.
Separated from her husband and just 17, Dorothy was traveling to Utica, New York with her 11-month-old daughter, Eyvonne.
Do you mind holding her a while?
No, not at all.
Donald was delighted to hold Eyvonne, and before long, he became her unofficial babysitter. That evening, as the train proceeded east, Dorothy sat with Donald and slowly revealed the details of her life.
When we get to Utica, I'm gonna have to put her in a foster home.
Dorothy was in dire financial straits and had no way of supporting her baby.
I simply can't take care of her.
I'm sorry.
I talked quite a bit to her.
It's okay. I'm gonna get a job.
And as we started getting closer to Omaha, I asked her if she'd like to have me take the baby home with me till she got settled and could send for the baby, or maybe I could bring it to her. And she agreed on that. I thought I'd better get something on paper to prove that I wasn't kidnapping the child. So I thought of this idea of writing up this agreement.
The agreement stated that Dorothy had willingly entrusted Eyvonne to Donald's care, and that if she did not call for the child within 60 days, Donald and his wife could begin adoption proceedings.
I feel at that time she was at her last rope. She didn't know what to do with this child. I think that she picked him because she could see that he cared, and he has compassion for people, and he has a very good heart, and I feel like she knew that. She knew that when she said, will you take this child, that she could trust him.
At 2 p.m. on November 16th, the train pulled into Omaha. Donald's wife, Barbara, and his parents were there to give him a hero's welcome.
Donald! Barbara!
I got off the train and hugged and kissed, and then I told her the good news.
Who's this? Well, she needed a home. A woman on the train asked me to keep her.
That kind of shocked her, set her back on her heels. I tried to explain this, the whole thing to my wife, and she didn't really believe it at first. She thought it was probably some of my scouting around.
Barbara soon got over her initial shock. Within days, both of the Caffreys were completely in love with Eyvonne. However, when county officials caught wind of the unusual arrangement, Donald and Barbara became fearful that Eyvonne would be taken from them. They decided to file for legal custody before the agreed-upon 60 days. A few days later, Donald received a wire from Dorothy Johnson.
Thank you very much.
Arrived home Tuesday, and I want Eyvonne very much. How is she anyway? Dorothy Johnson.
Donald was in a quandary. The very next day, he and Barbara were due in court for the custody hearing. Donald decided to proceed, believing it was in Eyvonne's best interests.
What is the word from the child's natural mother, Dorothy Johnson?
She has not appeared, neither.
The judge said that before making a decision, he would need to speak personally with Dorothy Johnson.
The child is how old?
A new court date was scheduled. Eyvonne was placed in temporary foster care and became an overnight celebrity. Newspapers throughout the country seized upon the story. They dubbed Eyvonne the smoker car baby. Dorothy Johnson was summoned to Omaha to explain her actions. Otherwise, she might be charged with parental neglect. Dorothy never appeared in court, but a witness did show up to challenge the Caffreys' custody suit.
Your Honor, Dorothy is afraid to come to Omaha herself as she faces charges of neglect. She fears going to jail. I'm Dorothy Johnson's sister. I've come from New York in hopes of adopting the baby myself. I feel I can provide a good and decent home for the child, and I'm sure in time the baby would respond to me as her own mother.
Request denied.
I never seen anybody. Nobody ever showed up on my doorstep or called me or asked me for the baby back or a thing. So we just went ahead and decided to adopt her.
In light of your ongoing commitment to the child,
in June of 1947, after a 2-year struggle, a juvenile court judge awarded the Caffreys sole custody.
Custody of the child to Donald and Barbara Caffrey.
By now, Eyvonne had been renamed Sandra Lee. The smoker car baby ceased to be headline material. When Sandra was 9, her parents separated. She spent most of her time with her grandmother. When Sandra was 18, her adopted mother finally told her the truth about her past.
When I found out that I was adopted, I was really surprised. I came back home and I said, "Grandmother, was I adopted?" And my grandmother said, "Yes," with tears in her eyes, because I really don't think she ever really wanted me to know.
A few months later, Sandra received an unusual letter in the mail. For the first time, she saw the face of her natural mother.
When the picture came in this envelope, there was no address, no note. It could have been my mother that sent the article, And maybe she was afraid to come out. Maybe she just wanted to be in the background, but let me be able to see. It's a mystery. It's a mystery.
The letter was postmarked Omaha, Nebraska. Only later did Sandra discover that an anonymous woman had phoned her grandmother and asked if she could send Sandra clippings about the smoker car baby. Today, armed with little more than faded clippings and a single photograph of Dorothy Johnson, Sandra is more determined than ever to reunite with a mother who reluctantly gave her away nearly 50 years ago.
I think she got scared. I think she wanted me, but I don't think she had any help, maybe from her family, to help her try to get back to me. There's a void in my life. I know in her life, there's that void too, and there's lots of hurt.
On the night of our broadcast, Sandra Lee Nelson's long search came to a bittersweet end. A viewer called our phone center with the sad news that Dorothy Johnson had passed away in 1968. However, Sandra was overjoyed to learn that she had an Uncle Mickey and two aunts, Jan and Alice, who had always wondered about Sandra and were anxious to meet her. A month later, on December 28, 1993, Sandra and her husband, Chet, arrived in Syracuse, New York to receive a most remarkable Christmas gift. A house full of relatives waiting to meet Sandra for the very first time.
I didn't think I'd ever find anyone. It just gave me chills. It just made me feel real warm. Like, oh, gee, what a nice family.
This is Dorothy and Harold. That's
Dorothy and Wayne.
That's Wayne. That's it. This is supposed to be
Sandra and her new family began to compare notes on Dorothy Johnson's life. Although Sandra was unable to learn the identity of her birth father, she did discover that in the early 1950s, Dorothy had married a man named Wayne Rogers. Sandra now would like to find Wayne Rogers in the hope that she can fill in the remaining gaps in her past.
Now, this is the only picture I have of me. I'm getting little bits and pieces from friends and relatives telling me a little bit about her, and which, you know, these little things mean a great deal to me. I have found a family, a wonderful family that I never thought I'd ever have. This is the best holiday.
One more hug.
Okay. It's the best time in my life.
When we return, authorities need your help in the case of a vicious unknown assailant who targets young girls. The neighborhood park. In a perfect world, a refuge from the realities of urban life, filled with the sounds of children at play. But on May 26, 1992, a park in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, became the backdrop for a parent's worst nightmare.
Mom, I forgot my shoes.
Across the street from the park, a 3-year-old girl named Mandy lived with her aunt. Mandy had spent most of the afternoon in the playground, which was almost like her own backyard. At 6 p.m., she returned to retrieve her shoes.
Come on, you can do it.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot.
I got worried and I went out to go and find her. And when I did get out to the park, there was a guy out there playing ball hockey with his kids.
Have you seen Mandy anywhere? I've been looking all over for her.
He said he had just seen Mandy about 5 minutes earlier getting her shoes, but he didn't see which way Mandy went.
Mandy!
Audrey combed the neighborhood for 2 solid hours. Finally, she called the police. They launched their own search, but also came up empty-handed. 19 hours later, a group of horseback riders came across Mandy in a remote field 9 miles from her home.
God, Daryl, just a minute. Just a minute, Lori.
She had a 1-inch welt on her neck from being choked and had been sexually assaulted. She was partially clothed and both of her shoes were missing. But amazingly, Mandy was still alive.
It was quite obvious to everyone involved that she had been left for dead. She was injured to such an extent that the perpetrator definitely wanted her to be dead.
I wouldn't have believed that she could have made it out there where they found her. But then when I thought about it after, she was a miracle. It was a miracle that she lived through that.
Apparently, the assailant had driven into the field and thrown Mandy from the car without stopping, but he had left nothing in the way of evidence.
Mandy initially wasn't able to tell us an awful lot. She was only 3.5 years old. However, as time progresses, she is giving us more and more information. She is actually a very bright young girl. In my opinion, if she sees the person or persons responsible, she will be able to identify them.
I think we have something over here.
Within 5 miles of the spot where Mandy was found, the police chanced upon tattered pieces of her skirt and one of her sneakers. The police believe the items were discarded by the assailant shortly after he dumped Mandy by the side of the road.
The shoe was minus the laces. We're still missing at this time her left shoe. The person responsible may be saving these items as a bit of a trophy, keepsake. And we're hopeful as well that perhaps somebody may have seen the shoe or perhaps a part of that jean skirt in a person's vehicle.
The investigation soon stalled. 4 months later, on September 4th, a local newspaper reported that the police had uncovered no further clues. Essentially, the case was at a dead end.
Oh, base. No fair, you cheated.
2 days later, a 6-year-old girl and her 5-year-old friend were playing outside their apartment building, just 4 miles from where Mandy lived. Minutes later, an 11-year-old boy looked out his window and saw a man getting into a blue van with a little girl. The abducted girl was 6-year-old Corinne Gustafson, who was nicknamed Punky. The police immediately set up a command post and, aided by dozens of volunteers, launched a widespread search. Punky's parents, Karen and Raymond, could do little more than sit at home and wait.
We was just feeling sick and worried what could have happened to her and what could you be doing to her, and if we ever find her.
3 days passed. Then on September 8th, at a truck yard in the southeast section of Edmonton, a driver noticed what he thought was a rag doll. Punky Gustafson had been murdered. Punky had been raped and smothered. Her death brought Mandy's assault back into the public eye. However, unlike Mandy's case, clues had been left at the scene.
We were able to obtain footprints and tire prints. The tire prints indicated that the suspect drove a mid-size North American front-wheel drive vehicle with Goodyear Invicta GLs on the back with approximately 20% wear and bald tires on the front. The Footprints indicated that he wore a miter-type baseball cleat, size 5.5 to 7. This is a patented tread design manufactured in Canada. We were able to determine that Corinne was in fact killed at another location and dumped in the truck yard, much the same as what happened to Mandy, being dumped in the field.
The distance the victims were transported after abduction, what was done to the victims by the offender, all facts of the case lead me to believe that both crimes were committed by the same individual.
Ron MacKAY is Canada's foremost criminal profiler. He has developed a detailed personality portrait of the assailant.
In my opinion, this offender is in his late teens to early 20s. He probably doesn't have a girlfriend, somewhat of a loner. He's a fantasy-motivated individual, and his fantasy is only satisfied temporarily. So therefore, after he regains some confidence, and if the fantasy continues untreated, then the probability of him reoffending in a similar fashion is a very real probability.
Since Punky's death, the Edmonton police have launched their largest media campaign ever.
Someone out there knows this guy, be it their next-door neighbor, their schoolmate, their fellow employee, or the little paper boy that lived down the block. Our bad guy doesn't have to look like any kind of a monster. He could just look like your boy next door.
I'm going to bring you on stage here for just a minute, okay? How old are you?
6.
Oh, bummer. You've got to be 7 to do this trick. Yeah, 7. How old are you?
7.
This home video was taken 2 months before Corinne died. The police have not ruled out the possibility that the same man who murdered Corinne may have also attacked Mandy.
I know it would give our family a sense of relief knowing that he's behind bars and somebody else isn't going to have to go through it, what we're going through, and some poor little kid isn't going to have to suffer like Corinne must have. And as long as he's out on the streets, every little kid is in jeopardy.
Join me next time for another intriguing edition of Unsolved Mysteries.